Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
So,
What's poppin'?
Oh, what's poppin' is poison. Poison.
Out there, girls, that's driving me. No, sorry, I'm just rocking out. Yeah, so what's poison? Poison.
Poisoners, poisoning.
Is it preview card? Well, not poison counters, though.
No.
Let's just be clear about that. Different kind of poison. We're talking more the Deathtouch kind of poison. Pirate poison, if you will.
It's still going to kill you. It's going to kill you dead. If you're a creature. And it might kill you dead if you're a player, but it would take like 10 hits.
Or less. Mostly.
Let's not bury this lead any further.
Dire Fleet Poisoner. 1 and a black for a 2/2 human pirate. It's a rare from Rivals of Ixalan with 3 abilities. It has Flash, so already we're starting out at Ashcoat Bear and on the way up. 2/2 Flash, and then it also has Deathtouch. So that's already 2/2 Deathtouch isn't just all over the place. And then when Dire Fleet Poisoner enters the battlefield, target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 and gains Deathtouch until end of turn.
So he's just also he just hands somebody he's like, here, borrow my Deathtouch for a second.
Oh yeah, which is there's a lot of applications to how to use this card. I mean, this is a card with a lot of gameplay to it.
Oh, I think this card is really good. I think it's layered, and I think it's going to have a decent impact depending on what kind of other cards are going to be played in Standard, for example. But just to set a bar, 1 and a B for a 2/2 nothing else text. That was playable in Standard not that long ago. This guy's 4 times as good as that and has amazing synergy applications.
Yeah, I mean, to get into a little bit some of the synergy that's going on here. For starters, how do you like this with anything with First Strike?
Oh, so an attacking creature might have First Strike, and then you're going to give it Deathtouch? An attacking pirate, I should say, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
you need to have a pirate with First Strike. But there are ways to give your creatures First Strike as well.
Sure. But to answer that question, I like it. A lot of the time, somebody's going to, they're like, I'm attacking with a First Striking creature, and they're like, well, I have a big creature. I'm going to put a big creature in front of your First Striking creature, and you're like, hi-ya! Dire Fleet Poisoner is going to come down, give that attacking pirate Deathtouch and +1/+1, and he's going to kill their big blocker and live to tell the tale.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can just take anything, basically anything short of the Scarab God down.
And you could even take the Scarab God down for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, how about this? Short of Hazaret.
Yeah.
So Kari Zev, Skyship Raider, is a great example of the exact type of pirate that often gets blocked. And not only does she get blocked, she gets double blocked. Because it takes 2 to double block her. She's got Menace. But she also has First Strike, and while she's normally just a 1/3, the bonus here from Dire Fleet Poisoner is exactly perfect. Not only does she pick up the Deathtouch for the turn, that +1/+1 means that she'll have 2 points of First Strike Deathtouch damage to dole out, meaning that double block on Kari Zev is going to devastate them when you drop the Dire Fleet Poisoner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think those two are just, it's amazing how good those two are together. And then Rigging Runner is another pirate. A lot of people forget, this is a pirate. It's a goblin pirate. It's a 1/1 for red, 1/1 First Strike. That when it enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 counter if you attack with a creature this turn. So Rigging Runner is just another First Strike creature naturally for your pirate deck. The fact that you have both Kari Zev and Rigging Runner is just extra ways to make Dire Fleet Poisoner trade way up. And then that's not the only combo, though. What do you think about this one with Trample?
With Trample? Tell me about Dire Fleet Poisoner with Trample, Patrick.
So let's say you're attacking with your Rowdy crew. It's a 5/5 because you're incredibly lucky. So your 5/5 Rowdy crew attacks they block, and say they block with even a 5/5, like the Scarab God, they're thinking they're in pretty good shape. If you give Rowdy Crew +1/+1 and Deathtouch from the Direfleet Poisoner, it's now a 6/6, so it'll live through the Scarab God, but it also only takes 1 damage to kill the Scarab God, meaning that your opponent's going to take 5 points of trample damage.
Oh my gosh. So the Deathtouch actually changes the threshold for the trample?
Right. It only takes 1 point of Deathtouch damage, and all of the rest will trample over.
Wow.
So it's cool. 1 per blocker. Even if they triple block, though, that's still 3 points trampling over, despite killing all their creatures, no matter how big they are.
I think that there's another thing that's just a little subtle with this card, and I think it's going to be a big application in the kinds of decks that you're implying that would have Kari Zev or Rowdy Crew, which are red pirate decks already, which is just that it costs 2. Right? Imagine you have Daring Buccaneer. Daring Buccaneer is a new card that was revealed earlier this week. It's R for a 2/2 human pirate, but you have to pay 3 if you don't show a pirate from your hand. Now, let's say that you show a pirate other than the Direfleet Poisoner when you play it, but it's basically an awesome 2/2 pirate creature with no drawbacks for just a single mana. You come in on turn 1, and you could just drop the Direfleet Poisoner for either extra damage or winning a combat, right? Like imagine you play it and then your opponent plays a 2/2 back or something. You can just go over. You could just take advantage of curve here.
Yep. No, I think that this one's got, and that's all. I mean, what about this guy on defense though? Like I know that obviously if you're playing some kind of a pirate deck, your A game, you're planning on attacking, for sure. But sometimes you got to be on defense. Yeah,
I actually think that they were very careful with the target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 and gains Deathtouch at the end of turn to limit how awesome this card was on defense. Because this
No. You're just talking about the ability. The winds enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
Direfleet Poisoner can play defense awesome. If your opponent attacks you with a Bristling Hydra, you can flash down the Direfleet Poisoner and block it.
And kill it.
No matter how many counters they put on it with the Bristling Hydra, the hexproof doesn't matter. And even if their deck has a lot of sorcery speed removal, or they're using stuff like Chandra or Glorybringer, all that stuff is not going to stop your Direfleet Poisoner from flashing down and killing the Bristling Hydra without even having to target it.
Yes, super solid trade, right? So this creature is, kind of a cross between a Terror and a Simian Grunts there. But what I'm saying is, because you couldn't give itself the +1/+1 on defense, that prevents it from just, for example, eating a 2/2.
Yeah, it can eat 1/1s.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of people are going to get so fixated on that bottom ability being an attacking ability that they're going to forget just how powerful Flash is on your opponent's turn. Because you can, flash down to eat a 1/1 or flash down to effectively terminate a ground creature, but you can also flash down on your opponent's end step after they just swept the board. You can also flash down to stop any haste creature in general. Your opponent attacks with an on-crop crasher, and you don't want to have to worry about blocking. I mean, it's hard to block those people sometimes. And if you just flash down a Direfleet Poisoner, that's a very efficient answer to an on-crop crasher.
Yeah, 2 for 3, and you just save yourself 3 damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Direfleet Poisoner also adds a tactical element for fighting planeswalkers. For instance, if your opponent drops a Chandra and kills one of your creatures, like say some pirate or whatever, you can flash down the Direfleet Poisoner, surprise kill the Chandra. And the same is true for several other planeswalkers. I mean, 2 points of flash is pretty solid right now.
And what percentage of Snapcaster Mages do you think just get cast, maybe not at the end of the second turn, but just cast with no flashback going on, just because you need to get a body out there or because you just want to rumble? I think a surprising percentage are just Ashcote Bear, aren't they?
Yeah, and only a 2/1. This one's at least a 2/2. Plus, with Deathtouch, I mean, you can do some work. You can do some damage with Deathtouch. So, I mean, what else are you? I mean, so we already talked about red-black pirates. Do you think this card is going to be showing up in any black-blue pirate decks?
Oh, I do. I think that if there's going to be a deck with a high concentration of pirates that has any black in it, Direfleet Poisoner is probably going to be in the mix for standard pirate decks. It's just too good. I mean, just imagine things like somebody abrading your hostage taker during combat, right? Like this counter spells an abrade on a hostage taker, right? In some situations. That's like a pretty big game, considering how devastating a hostage taker can be and how theoretically vulnerable it is to cards like Lightning Strike or Abrade.
Is there any good way to fight with this thing?
What do you mean by fight?
Like to set up some kind of a fight so that you can use its Deathtouch from a distance.
I don't know. Do you have any off the top of your head?
I don't know. The pirates.
No.
Yeah,
maybe if we were dinosaurs.
Yeah, that is the bind. Because it seems like, I mean, there's some pirates that do damage themselves, but the pirates aren't setting up fights the same way. So I don't know, man. This card seems pretty dope.
Yeah, I think it's
kind of okay.
I think it's great. The other thing that I really like about it is you can have a little bit of tactical trickery with this. So imagine, just the same situation we were talking about before, where you played a Daring Buccaneer on the first turn, but you didn't play a Daring Buccaneer with a mountain, right? Instead, you played it with some kind of a Cavern of Souls, naming pirates, right? What's the one that's in Standard right now? That's the same.
The territory, yeah.
Yeah. So you name pirates, you tap it for R, and then you play Daring Buccaneer, and then on your second, your opponent does whatever. On your second turn, you play a mountain. For sake of argument, right? Play mountain second, right? Then you get in with your Daring Buccaneer, and your opponent, lazily shocks it, right, during combat, which could easily happen. Some sort of play like that. You have the ability to play.
I see where you're going.
The Direfleet Poisoner, but you never signaled that you had black in your deck, right? You just signaled you had a card that could cast a pirate, and because there's going to be pirate decks that aren't black. Well, maybe, I don't know. This guy might be so good that there aren't pirate decks that aren't black. You didn't necessarily tip your hand. Versus if you played a black red dual land or a swamp or something on the second turn, that would have been play around my black card now. But you didn't necessarily do that with those lands, and I think that's going to be a way that people play.
Well, if it's not like everybody just wants to shock it on their main phase. That's how you end up getting set up to get hit by the captain. What's her name? The 2/2 haste that makes treasures.
Lannery Storm,
right. So if on turn 2, if somebody plays their pirate on turn 2, regardless, even if it's black, red, whatever, even if the jig is up, if you just play a pirate on turn 2, like say that 2/1 menace or whatever, right? If you play a pirate on turn 2, they're already in a bind. Skyship Raider as well, but they're already in a bind because if they kill it on their turn, they're opening themselves up to getting hit by the 2/2 haste, and you're picking up treasures, which would have been way better for them to kill. I guess it doesn't work on the 2/1. You got to do it on a 2/2.
But anything, it doesn't matter.
Actually, the Pirate Lord, the black-red pirate, the 2/2 that when it attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each of your attacking pirate. Each of your other attacking pirates.
It could be an Earthshaker, Ken, honestly. It just anything that somebody.
Well, no, it needs to be a pirate.
No. I'm just saying a reason why somebody wouldn't necessarily just shock on their own turn. That's what I'm saying. That there's all the reasons in the world to
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying that it needs to be a 2/2 that you're protecting.
Sure.
So that the +1/+1 actually saves it. But
we are in violent agreement.
Oh, yeah. And talk about a way to have a violent agreement. Play this card, and you and your opponent are going to come to a violent agreement one way or the other. I mean, so there's a new pirate that was just previewed elsewhere, that Daring Buccaneer. You were mentioning Daring Buccaneer. Are there any? How much of this stuff do you think there's going to be? Is it just going to be a cycle of 5 like the Merfolk, or do you think it's possible we'll see more of these?
You mean more one casting cost large pirates? I mean, there's
no. I just mean pirates that you like more of the cards that are cheaper or whatever if you have a pirate.
Oh, I don't know. I could see only having one version at 1 mana for sure, right? You don't want to give too much concentration at 1 mana. But I could totally see at other casting costs, a larger pirate that would have an additional casting cost. But I think there's going to be a really good concentration of low drops, right? Like, imagine you played a Daring Buccaneer on the first turn, and then you revealed a Rigging Runner, right? That's like a really good potential sequence there, right? Just having a bunch of 2/2 guys for low mana. Depending on how the rest of Standard looks, just swarming the opponent with 2/2s for 1 and 2 mana might be a great strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it has been so far. Man. So if you're playing with the Poisoner, is there any world where it gets played in a deck that's not very piratey? Like maybe it has a little bit of pirate, like maybe, I don't know, 4 to 8 pirates or something, but it's not like a full-on pirate deck. Is there any world where you literally just value a 2/2 flash Deathtouch enough?
I actually think so. I think that it's in a weird spot, though. I could kind of imagine it in like a black-blue control deck. You know how black-blue control has previously played cards like Gifted Aetherborn in the sideboard? They may want some kind of a hybrid between a Terror and a card that would give them offensive initiative in some matchups, right? Because those decks would side in all of their small creatures against, for example, a blue-white approach deck after sideboarding, just to tax the limited number of removal cards that the opponent had, right? So I think that's super plausible. There's no other pirates other than Direfleet Poisoner in a sideboard, for example.
Well, what about Hostage Taker?
Oh, well, that guy's a heck of a pirate.
Yeah, and he shows up in a lot of sideboards and main decks already, right?
Yeah, I guess you could have just only Hostage Taker, and then maybe supplement to Hostage Taker.
Which Hostage Taker is an interesting one sometimes to give an extra point of toughness to. It's not going to come up very often, but it's interesting that Admiral's Order also really kind of pushes the whole be careful about letting the pirates attack thing. It's 1 blue instant rare from Rivals. If you it's counter target spell, and if you attacked with a creature this turn, you can pay blue instead of 1 blue. So it's a cancel, and then the upside is that if you have attacked with any creatures this turn, you can just pay 1.
Yeah, that's a crazy card, right? So it's worst case scenario is it's a cancel, which is a card that you have repeatedly been surprisingly successful with. Just regular old cancel.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't surprised.
You weren't surprised. The rest of us were like, actually, it's very humbling. I'm like, the best card in my hand is a cancel. How is this, Patrick Chapin? But anyway, you have a kind of a weird offensive counterspell then. So the way the Admiral's Order would work, I guess, is if you want to resolve a card in your second main phase, like a big threat, it's like a Force of Will-ish, right? Not 0, but super cheap to force through a big threat. Theoretically, if somebody's got a card like Settle the Wreckage, you've already attacked, right? At the point that they're casting Settle the Wreckage, you can counter their Settle for you instead of you won.
Admiral's Orders is particularly effective when trying to bottleneck on mana a control deck that might be looking to stick a Torrential Gearhulk. Torrential Gearhulk in particular loves flashing down in the middle of combat in order to eat an attacker while also casting a Glimmer.
It also loves being cast at the end of turn, right? So you could tap most of your mana, leave up just a U and say go, and then their Torrential Gearhulk end of turn, and you're like, not so much. That's devastating. 1 against 6 when you've already probably got some good beats in.
Mm-hmm. And another kind of twist to the Admiral's Orders is that when you play a flash creature, even a dinky small one like the Poisoner, if you play a Direfleet Poisoner, you can let's say you're playing some kind of a pirate deck, you flash down the Poisoner. Now your opponent's in a bind if they don't have enough mana to be able to play multiple things, because if you just attack with your Poisoner, you can now force through whatever the real thing is you wanted to play. Like having your opponent be in a spot where, like, for instance, let's say if they sweep the board, like they fumigate or whatever, and keep a counterspell open, you can flash down Direfleet Poisoner. Now, of course, if you just had the counterspell already, in 3 mana, then maybe you'd like to just counter their sweeper. But the point being that even if you have no threats on the table, you can surprise them with anything that it can attack. It doesn't even have to do damage.
I think it bears mentioning, though, that if you've got, black, blue, and 1 open, and you're attacking somebody even as early as the 3rd turn, but it may be if it's better later in the game, you could just jam somebody up with tricks, right? Like, you can start with the Direfleet Poisoner, and if they have something to trick back or a removal spell or something like that, you have an Admiral's Order. And, you're probably going to be way, way ahead on that exchange. Number one, because your cards are cheap, right? The Admiral's Order is probably going to trade for something more expensive, but almost every example that we've given where the Direfleet Poisoner is successfully cast and is successfully buffing and death touching or whatever one of his pirate compatriots is a great exchange for you, right? So it's like, your hostage taker lives through the Abrade, right? And they take 3 damage now, not even just 2 damage. Or, your creature lives, or your creature's taken down a bigger creature, or your Rowdy Crew is trampling over 3 guys. All those are great positive exchanges for you. And on top of that, it's not just like you cast a spell that gave you a positive exchange. You still have a 2/2 Deathtouch in play at the end of all of it. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's one more part of this that I think is kind of easy to overlook with how long it's been since this came up. However, it will come up more now, which is if you're playing a pirate deck, imagine if you flash down the Poisoner in order to crew a vehicle.
During combat?
Right?
Oh.
Like if your opponent just wasn't expecting the Aethersphere Harvester, if you're playing that, or if you're playing the pirate one, you can do that one too. From actual Ixalan. But any vehicle really. I mean, honestly, even just a Heart of Kirin. If you just flash down, it really can change the math for being able to crew, for what vehicles you're capable of crewing.
That is, forget about just that. Like, just the combat implications are amazing, right? Like, the fact that you have at least the possibility of a trade with a Death Touch creature on defense, and on top of that, you have the ability to just, like, chomp somebody with a large vehicle, possibly gaining life, possibly having some other kind of cool triggers, depending on which vehicle it is. That is just something we haven't thought about in months, because vehicles went from being so popular in Standard to being, not popular at all recently.
And just it is the nature of a lot of the flash creatures that have existed that they're not necessarily just walking around crewing every vehicle.
Nope.
But like a 2/2 is actually really convenient for making some crews happen that wouldn't have otherwise crewed. Archangel Avacyn has better things to do than surprise crew a vehicle.
Archangel Avacyn is a one angel splat machine already, right? Like, all my guys live, all your guys die. Right? So that's what that card says.
Right, but you could actually realistically have a Heart of Kirin in play and just a Kite Sail freebooter. And if you flash down the Poisoner and surprise actually get to crew the Heart of Kirin to just swallow up the flyer for free, or whatever.
Yeah, that's good, because you don't necessarily want to give up the Kite Sail freebooter. Even if you could give it Death Touch and kill 2 creatures or something, you might not want to give up the freebooter.
You can't give it Death. You can't give it Death Touch when you're on defense. You're being attacked by a 3/3, flying or otherwise. Let the Heart of Kirin eat that. Eat it up.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think this is a pretty exciting card. It's going to really end up depending on the rest of the support for the Pirates. But so far, I mean, Daring Buccaneer is better than the Kifkin version of this from Gold Medal Stalwart or whatever from way back.
And so if you've got that card was a Pro Tour Top 8 caliber card.
Mm-hmm. So if you've got Daring Buccaneer in the equation, in addition to the Poisoner, and maybe Rigging Runner and Captain Lannery Storm, and like it looks like there's kind of an exciting little black-red pirate deck coming together. Dude, I would love it too. If Rowdy Crew ends up being right to do, at least partially because of the synergy with the Poisoner, I would love it. Don't get me wrong, it's nice for Chandra and Glorybringer to have a day in the sun, finally, but it also be
nobody played them.
Right, yeah. Another thing to be watching for, I don't think we have one yet, but another thing to be watching for is if there's some sort of a prodigal sorcerer pirate in Standard. Like if there's a pirate that actually there's a pirate that does 1 damage to players and can keep on tapping. But if there's a pirate that can do 1 damage to creatures, you have to get into a spot where it's actually able to attack and still ping. But like the pirate that untaps that does 1 damage to the opponent each time. God, what's that guy called from Ixalan? Well, if they make another version that actually goes after creatures instead of just players, Lightning Rigging Crew. Every time you cast a pirate, untap it. Imagine if there was a Lightning Rigging Crew that hit creatures, so that you go. I attack with my Lightning Rigging Crew. I'll cast the Poisoner, give my Lightning Rigging Crew Deathtouch, but I'm also untapping it because of the Lightning Rig Crew's ability. And then if it shot creatures, if they make a version that shoots creatures, well, now you have a built-in terminate preemptively before blocks.
Yeah, and then your guys...
So we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah. So, seems sweet.
Yep, so this was our exclusive preview for Dire Fleet Poisoner, but don't worry about it. If you guys are looking for a longer, more regular episode of Top Level Podcast, we will be back here tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow. And, it's only a day away. And we will be talking about Rivals of Ixalan then, too. So, thanks, Patrick.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge into jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis.